Hello and welcome everyone to Meet a Streamer. This is our second episode, and I'll be honest with everyone here in the room. I didn't think we would make it this far, so I'm very proud right now and very excited as well. For we have two excellent guests, just as last time. I think it may become a habit. Today with us to ask, questions, have a little chat, have some banter. And one of those two people I will introduce now, and it's the wonderful, wonderful Ki11er6. Hello and welcome. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Amazing. So, Pirek, won't you introduce our second guy?
Okay, and our second guest is probably more well known around our builds
Definitely.
channel, especially in the server, which will be Quag. Hello, hi, and guys,
Hi,
welcome to
you're
the
all
second.
cute.
You too. Our people who left us questions told us already. So I want to welcome everyone to second episode of Meet the Streamer, the project by our Borderlands server, where we interview some of your favorite of streamers. So I'll maybe start with a question for. We talked about cats for a little bit before we started, so we'll just start from maybe Quag. And actually, Quag, I want to ask where is the main star of the tonight? Where's Kevin? And would you tell us why is Kevin better streamer than you?
Okay, so Kevin, aka the real power behind my channel, he was right in front of my TV there. You can see behind me. He likes to hang out in front of that. But right now he is over there making strange cat noises out the window. I think he's trying to get a bird. I'm not quite sure what he's after. But yeah, for those who don't know, I have two cats and they control my life and apparently my stream. And my viewers like my cats more than me, which is totally understandable.
I'm not gonna agree.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, as far as I know, like Ki11er6, you also have like a cat. Is that right?
Two. Yeah, I have
You
two
have
cats
two
as well.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about them. Like,
And I've got
are
a
there like any?
female calico cat named Precious,
Hmm.
who is actually the mastermind behind my streams as well. And then I have the boy named Biscuit, who, if you ever are watching my stream and you just see like a tail pop up right here and just go by, then that means he's jumped on my lap and just took off. So yeah, they make appearances occasionally.
And like, do you have like any, or either of you, do you guys have any like fun stories from when your cats were little or when you just got them?
You go first, Quag.
Well, I have a couple. So it starts sad, gets wholesome. So Kevin, the real star of the show, was in a really rough situation before I got him. Like he was mistreated pretty horribly. So it took him a while to warm up to me. He spent like the first few months I had him hiding in a suitcase that I just neglected to move. It became his favorite spot, so I left it there for him. Eventually, he warmed up, and as I'd sit in my chair gaming, he'd venture out a little longer every day. And one day he decided, oh, this human's pretty okay. So now he just refuses to leave me alone whenever I'm gaming, like more than any other time. He'll just be like, hey, pet me. I own you, by the way. You do this now. And so I have set up right behind me is my bed, and I put his favorite blanket that for some reason he absolutely loves. So whenever he decides to mess around with the blanket, everyone in chat can say hi to him and whatnot. And he's the real broadcaster. I just do his clerical work.
Ki11er6, what about you?
The only like really funny stories I've got about my cats is well, number one, Biscuit, and it kind of starts tragic like yours a bit too. But Biscuit was he was just like this lost kitten. He just showed up in our patio one day. We had an old cat carrier in the patio for when Precious would want to go out in the yard, and then she'd want to like come back in and like hide somewhere. So we left that cat carrier in the patio, and as I was going out to work one day, he just pops out of that cat carrier. He's just like, he's maybe, this big, and he just has this little tiny mew, and he was starving to death. So I put some food out in the yard away from the house, and I told my wife, I was like, all right, when you get home, don't let the cat in the house. because then we will own that cat. And so I'm at work that night, and she sends me a picture of Biscuit on her shoulder, just like nuzzling with her. And I was like, all right, we own cat. And then the only other story I've got is about Precious when she was a little kitten. My son was cuddling with her, and she just decided to poop on him. Yeah, about all I got.
Okay, this isn't the story I see. Okay, so I think we're gonna start with like a question that is like always at the very beginning. So I was a Ki11er6. What got you into the Borderlands? Do you remember like your first game you've played, and how did you get into all that?
I remember all of the exact for my Borderlands experience. So I was a big Call of Duty guy. I was like top 500 in the world, which I know people watch me stream and they're like, that aim made top 500 in the world. Okay, whatever. But I was top 500 in the world and kill confirmed on Modern Warfare 3, which yay me. But so I saw a commercial on TV for Borderlands 2, and it was like that bajillion guns commercial. And prior to Call of Duty, I was a huge fan of Phantasy Star Online, and I loved like hunting for the rare drops in that. So when I saw like the whole thing about how the loot was in Borderlands 2, I was like, I gotta try that. So me and my buddy who we played Call of Duty every night, I was like, dude, if I buy you this game, will you play with me? And he's like, yeah, man. And that very first night on Borderlands 2, we had snuck a car into that area where like you're getting the power core from the robot on Borderlands 2, and you're in that little camp, and you have like the side of the cliff there, and there's that cliff you can run up, and there's like that hidden porta potty that has like level 11 gear all the time. So like I ran up there and I was like, dude, I found stuff that's like level 11, because we were like level 4 or something like that. He drove the car up that cliff, and I jumped off and punched the car, not realizing that I could knock him off the cliff. So him and the car went off the cliff, and I was in love. It was all downhill from there.
Well, what were your first experiences with the game, Quag?
Well, I started with when the original Borderlands came out. I was in high school, and it was just like another game. A friend was in one of my classes was super excited about it, so I agreed to play with them, much like K6 convinced his friend to. And I was like, okay, this is cool. This is cool. I played the game for a few weeks, kind of put it down. Borderlands 2 came out, and I remember having a really good first impression of Borderlands 1, despite not putting that much time into it. So I played Borderlands 2 through its whole content cycle and everything. I was never huge into it enough to be part of the community in any significant way. But let's see, summer of 2019, before Borderlands 3 came out, I saw that the game had been announced and there was a lot of hype around it. So I decided to get back into things and do research and whatnot. And one of the first things I did was I started watching K6's content, actually, on Borderlands 2 to refresh myself on the franchise and everything. Toxic. But yeah, to refresh myself and everything, and I pre-ordered the game for Borderlands 3, and I watched all the trailers, the pre-release footage, and the VIP system stuff. I got super hyped for collecting all those points through the promo things. And then the game came out, and I started playing Flak, and that was the start of a very, very dark time of addiction to doing damage and yelling at pets. But yeah, and I have over 3,000 hours in Borderlands 3 now. And I built up my channel on it and built a community, and I first got more involved with the Borderlands community outside of just watching content with people who are good friends of mine now, Lazy Data and I Love Cheese too. I just spent a lot of time in their streams and chatting and meeting people, and eventually that led to making friends, and then friends of friends, and more friends with those friends, and that led me here.
And who did you main in previous games of Borderlands? Before Flak was your main character.
I played Lilith in Borderlands 1, as a lot of people did. Borderlands 2, I played Maya, as a lot of people did. But the second character I played, people probably don't expect that I would play a character that is, I can say, is terribly designed, but is so much fun, and that's Gage. I was a big Gage player in Borderlands 2.
What about pre-sequel? Or we don't talk about pre-sequel?
I like pre-sequel.
I do too.
initially when I first played through it, I was Athena, but to be honest, it was such a blur. I didn't absorb much of the game or anything. But this year I went back to it and I did a Timothy playthrough on my stream, and that was a lot of fun. I really like Timothy.
Mm-hmm.
What about you,
Yeah,
Killer?
Timothy is great.
Which
Yeah, what
my God, which characters you played before the Bill 3, like mostly?
So on Borderlands 2, I started with Zero, and I could not have picked a more perfect character for me to start with. I absolutely love everything about Zero. He still to this day is probably my favorite Vault Hunter of all of them. But like Quag said, dude, playing Timothy on the pre-sequel is about the most fun you can have while playing a Borderlands game. I know the pre-sequel takes a lot of flack for like lack of things to do, but man, playing as Timothy is fun, dude. But on Borderlands 1, when I did play Borderlands 1, I'm gonna probably get grief for this, but I didn't really like Borderlands 1 that much. I just felt like it was too muddy and clunky. It's really dark and gloomy, which a lot of people like that about it, and that's fine. It just didn't do it for me. But I played Mordecai, and then once I played Lilith, I was like, "There's no point in playing anybody else."
Yeah, but I think this is like a stance that a lot of people have that come from Borderlands 2 or Borderlands 3 into Borderlands 1. Because, of course, the game has evolved over like what has it been, like 10 years that this game has been out by now.
Mm-hmm.
So I can definitely see where you're coming from with this. I had the same reaction at first. But, also pulled through once I found out that Lilith exists.
Yeah.
But
I mean, the game is good. The game is really good. It's the fun game. So, like, don't ever take that wrong when I say that I don't like Borderlands 1. It's just, I started with Borderlands 2, and it's really hard to go back to the old iteration. Like, I'm sure there's going to be people that start on Borderlands 3, and then when you tell them you need to play Borderlands 2, they'll go back and they'll be like, can't mantle, I can't slide, why don't I do damage at level 80? So it's one of those things, every generation's not going to appreciate the previous thing as much, I guess.
It's just a thing that comes with like no new games, I guess. But since we're on the topic of like Vault Hunters and favorites and all of that, what would you guys, so question to both of you, consider to be like your favorite play style from like any genre actually, or something that you can find in Borderlands?
I guess I'll go first. I'm primarily a flak player in Borderlands 3, which generally it's agreed upon that the most common and most adrenaline rush centric way of playing flak is you go all in on damage. You don't care about surviving, you don't care about utility, you don't care about anything except making all the enemies drop before the fact that that's all you can do matters. So I like draining the red bars before my red bar drains.
I'm a big fan of purple tree only pet builds like Quag is. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So I am, just like when I played Call of Duty, I'm a huge fan of like fast movement, high fire rate weapons. That's why I love the light show and things like that so much. And playing as Zane and using a light show, it takes me back to that old days of like I was doing kill confirmed. I'm like zipping across maps and people can't hit me, and it's just a lot of fun. I just like moving fast, doing lots of damage, and being bad at video games.
Ooh, I'm that too.
I think we can all agree that being bad at video games is a trait that we all share.
I think Quag's selling himself way short.
But Ki11er6, you touched a little bit on like pet builds and like like purple skill trees. So another question to both of us, and maybe Quag, you go first. What do you guys think about the new skill trees, like the ones you've been able to try out yet? Give us your opinions.
Well, this is
you
something
can be honest about flex skill tree because I can see it in your eyes right now.
You can even swear if you desire to.
Okay, so Flak's Purple Tree is the worst skill tree ever created in the history of Borderlands. There's no way to get around it. It's ridden with bugs. It's got design flaws. It is just an absolute disaster, and that makes me very sad because you guys just heard me gush for 5 minutes about how much I love Flak. It's very much not okay. And all hope is not lost because Gearbox has been great about changing, updating skills, and there have been a lot of bug fixes over the course of the over a year this game's been out. So hope is not lost. It can still change. It's just it's very upsetting when you get something as amazing and obviously a passion project like Zane's Purple Tree, and then you look at Flax and you can ask the very reasonable question of, did anyone who plays this character have a hand in designing this? So that's where I'm at with that.
Do you think
Sorry.
there's like anything in this flag skill tree that you could change to like make it at least usable? I don't say good, but usable.
How much time do we have?
Okay.
I mean,
really sure.
open-ended, right?
Yeah, yeah. I have day off tomorrow, so don't worry, we can go on.
Yeah.
You know,
it should
I'm
take
gonna go
longer
to
to
a
get the video
Christmas
out.
lighting ceremony in a couple hours. We gotta at least get done before then.
Okay, we'll try.
Yeah, we can make a break.
So, for me, I think like Quag said, he nailed it. I mean, Zane's Purple Tree is a work of art. Mose has a couple of decent things going on in her Purple Tree. Amara has a couple of decent things going on in her tree. Flack Purple Tree is just pretty rough. That said, I absolutely think that everything is salvageable, and I think that they've shown it, like you said, they've shown a propensity to really fix things that aren't quite as they wanted them. So I have faith.
Okay. Well, you both like playing different characters, trying different things on them. I know right now arms race is everything, but apart from arms race, tell me what is your favorite build? Like on your favorite character, you can choose one, and what's so cool about this build?
You first, Quag.
Okay. So I made a build. The thing that really, I suppose, put me on the map as a creator was my build Rackstab that I made this summer. It's about using action skill start anoint on the Stinger shield, which makes a melee damage nova around you. It's using that to apply your melee artifacts, and then you min max your damage boost. You can use your splash boost, your elemental boost, your melee boost, and you put all of that with Flack's really good damage formula from skill trees, and then you just run around casting rack attacks, not caring what the racks themselves do, but the stinger just hits everything and destroys them. And fun fact about it, there is no enemy health bar in the game long enough to survive Flack pressing action skill one time. Every single enemy in the game that is not interrupted by an immune phase can die to just I hit F on my keyboard once and that's it.
Perfectly balanced. I guess for me, it's probably my nuclear winter Zane, because again, it fits into my playstyle. Constant moving, speed. You hold down the trigger, everything's blowing up and dying. It's just fun.
Okay. Tell me maybe, well, going back to arms race, which is like one thing everyone streams right now because no one watches anything else almost. Tell me like, give me three things you like about arms race and one thing you don't like and you would want to change in it.
Okay. I'll start with the positives because there's a lot of positives. I love arms race as content. I think it's one of the best things.
Three.
just three. The first thing, I love that it gets back to the core gunplay. Like that's something that's really lost in Borderlands 3's endgame because I mean I was just talking about a build that I didn't mention guns at all because you don't shoot. That's something that's lost, and this is an FPS. This is a looter shooter, so gunplay, great. The second thing is I love roguelikes and roguelites as a form of game. There's a lot of people in here, K6 included, who like that stuff. Risk of Rain, Hades, games like that. And Arms Race is definitely in the spirit of those games. The third thing I like is that anoints they matter, but they are so much less impactful in Arms Race. And that just feels like a better version of the game to play. If there'd be a negative to Arms Race, it's that I want there to be more of it. I want longer form gameplay. Like you can get some pretty lengthy Arms Race runs, but it's not as lengthy as, say, doing a Guardian takedown. So I just want longer gameplay, which is something that helps bridge the gap between PC players and console players, and things like load times. You don't have to sit there looking at a load screen. You can just get in there and be in your game. You can get more powerful over time and just have a lot of things to do. So definitely expand on arms race. It's not enough yet.
Yeah, I mean, he hit the nail on the head for every single point that I would make as well. I mean, I guess what I'll say is the balancing of arms race is really really well done. Whether you're on a level 13 character or you're on a mayhem 0 character or a mayhem 11 character, arms race feels balanced. You can pick up whatever weapon and do some damage, and you don't need anointments. You don't need your action skills, and that might go as one of the things that a lot of people consider to be a negative about arms race, is that you don't have your action skills. So essentially all 4 of the vault hunters are the same in arms race, but I kind of like that. I like that change of pace. Like we like Quag said, he's got that build where he just presses his action skill and everything's dead. So this is a nice change of pace, in my opinion, where you just focus gunplay, and that's what I like. In terms of the negatives, I guess boss, same boss every single run. You know.
Yeah, you kind of get used to it, don't you?
Mm.
Now, with Arms Race being part of like the 5th DLC now in the lifecycle of Borderlands 3, and I hope you guys have played each other DLC as well. What would you guys think is like your favorite Borderlands 3 DLC? And maybe if you can rank all the Borderlands 3 DLCs that come out yet from worst to best, how would that look like? Maybe Quack go first, as always.
Okay. Well, let's start with my immediate least favorite. Is despite arms race, it would be DLC 5, the designer's cut, the most recent one, just because it is paid content for skill trees, and the character that I play did essentially got no content that is character specific of real value until bug fixes and reworks are done. So that instantly puts DLC 5 at the bottom for me. Going up from there would be DLC 4, which I quite like DLC 4. There were some writing bits, story wise, that hit some real emotional points. Like they discussed things like mental health, and it was really impactful for me. I absolutely love it from a story standpoint. It's just, and this is understandable because 2020 has been a year. Lack of content in DLC 4. It's not really very replayable in any significant capacity. Like, you go through the story once, you hit all the side quests, and you know everything about it. There's no real gameplay to bring you back into it. Going up from there, DLC 3 would be next for me. DLC 3 has really cool environments. I love the mix of the Western vibes and the Japanese terminology and iconography and everything. And the some of the DLC 3 items are super impactful for theory crafting. You have crazy weapons like the light show, the flipper, the beacon. And then after that, it's kind of hard for me to decide which I like more between DLC 2 and 1. I think that they're both fantastic DLCs, from just environments, music, storytelling, characters. Like, they're very core Borderlands to me. If I had to absolutely decide, I'd rank DLC 1 as my favorite. Because again, we talked about Timothy is great, and it was just great to see him and have him be a story focus. I love the dynamic between him and Moxie and all the other characters. And I just have a lot of fond memories of the hype going into DLC 1 and then it being everything I wanted. So weirdly enough, for me, least favorite to most favorite is pretty much order of release.
How about
Interesting.
you, Ki11er?
So for me, I'm gonna go the opposite way. I'll start with what I like the best, and for me, that's DLC 3. And there's a number of reasons. Since we're stuck with this anointment system that I'm not a huge fan of, but since we have to try and farm for anointments for builds and stuff like that, I love that DLC 3 made drop rates doable. So like, if you want to go farm a light show or a flipper, you can get a good light show or flipper in a day. Whereas if you want to like go farm for like a good, I don't know, say like, uh, was the beast gun that Lilith never drops? If you want to go farm for one of those, good luck. You know what I
Miserable.
mean? You're going to be there the rest of your week, at least, probably. For me, I'm going to go with DLC 3, then DLC 1, just because it's more Timothy slash Jack, and I love the amount of things that opens up for the future. When you think about, if anybody here has ever played Tales from the Borderlands, then you know that there's going to be this dynamic between Timothy and Reese at some point in the future, and that could be really really good for the story of Borderlands. Um, I really like everything that they set up with that, and then I would probably go with probably man from there it's kind of they're all kind of the same for me after that. Even though I like the Hammerlock DLC, the fact that you can't really dedicate farm certain things, like for the old God Shield, for example, you just gotta hope that somebody drops it, and it's just a really annoying farm. And there's several things like that, but I guess I would rank that third still yet, then Arms Race fourth, and then for me the Krieg DLC fifth. Not because I don't like it, and just like Quag said, that it covers a lot of really good things and it touches on mental health and things like that. That I thought they did an excellent job on that. But all of the side quests are literally just to tell more stuff about mental health, and that's fine. But that doesn't lend itself to like a fun gameplay experience as well. Like you can do that thing, but you also need to make it entertaining for players and give them some sort of motivation to do these things. When every single side quest is like, okay, well, you got nothing for that, then you kind of just don't want to do it. And then for casual players, they probably hated things like the Psycho Reaver fight and the Lilith fight, the Brick and Mordecai fight, even to some people was pretty challenging. I had lots of comments on videos. Like, you beat Brick and Mordecai, and I'm like, bro, you're gonna need to go farm some better gear. So yeah, I would put that one at my last with Arms Race just slightly edging it out, and it's real slight edging it out. Let me tell you.
Interesting. Yeah. Now that we've kind of like talked about the DLCs a little bit, when we look at like how Gearbox handled like games in the past, like Borderlands 2 being supported for quite some time with a lot of like the headhunters and the DLCs, and then Borderlands TPS being dropped like a hot potato. Sadly, what do you guys like think, or what would you guys prefer? If Gearbox would continue support and fix Spiel 3 for another 2, 3, maybe more years, or just start working on the Borderlands 4, taking all the feedback from Borderlands 3 in mind, maybe come out with a better anointment system, or just change anointment to something completely different. And maybe like an additional question, what do you guys think would be the turning point in this decision?
Why not both?
Yeah,
Why not? Why not have like a team that continues working on Borderlands 3, but at the same time they're already working on like the narrative for Borderlands 4. And I think if there's anything we've learned from Borderlands 3, it's please God, let them have like a strong narrative team work on Borderlands 4. And I'm fine with. Here's the thing. I'm fine with the story on Borderlands 3. I know that people hate it for whatever reason. They hate Ava. I'm fine with it. I play Borderlands to loot and shoot. The story is just there. I don't really get too much into it. And I've talked with the writers, and all three of the guys that worked on this, Varnell and the two Sam and Danny, they all like have a real strong passion for the game. But you have to understand that there's probably things that were out of their control in terms of like narrative and in terms of like how you have to build the game and make things work. And we even saw that to some degree in Borderlands 2. There's some things that have to be kind of shoehorned in. So I don't know. I think that Borderlands 3 is fine. I just think it drags on in some parts. But I do think that Borderlands 4, they need to really, really buckle down on the story so that people don't have that bitch.
How about you, Quack? What do you think?
So I think it's great that K6 brought up the idea of them just doing both. We've seen them do this both thing before. You guys remember DLC 5 for Borderlands 2, Commander Lilith DLC? That was done while they were finalizing Borderlands 3. And Lilith DLC did a lot of really cool things from a gameplay and a story perspective. It did some things that people don't like, sure, but that's gaming. You don't always get just good. I think them taking the risk of continuing to work on what they're currently doing and also future endeavors together is one of the smarter things they could do. Now, if I had to decide between them starting the next game early or finishing this one, because let's be honest, it would be finishing this one. There are things in a state that isn't acceptable right now. I would prefer that they finished this game that has been out for a year, and doing year 2 support for this game is something not everybody expected. It was never guaranteed. It's something that the concept of has been very well received by the community. I think that them making a strong year 2 for this game before moving on to another project would be a really good gesture of goodwill they could do to all of us who love the franchise. So I'm in camp fix BL3 if I have to pick, but I do like the idea of both.
Yeah. Okay, I have a specific question for Ki11er6 this time. Someone asked if do you think Gearbox should add in a way for players to swap anointments on their gear using Iridium to combat the really heavy RNG?
But yeah, I mean, that's something that a lot of people want. I don't know from like a game design standpoint how easy it is to implement something like that, but we've kind of seen it in the past with the grinder from the pre-sequel. You put some items in and you use the currency, the Loonstone or whatever it was called, and then you grind those into something else. Now with the pre-sequel, it would give you something random, but in the same category as the items you put into that. I think what they should do, if it's feasible in Borderlands 3, I would like to have a machine like that where you put in the item that you want to change. Let's go with like a Monarch. Let's say you got a ×4 Monarch and it has a elemental crits anointment on it, right? And then you also have say you have another assault rifle, let's say a Chaos. You have a Chaos and it has the consecutive hits anointment on it. So you put the Monarch in and then you're like, all right, what weapon do you want to swap with? You put the Chaos in, you spend, it should be a substantial amount of Iridium, which wouldn't be a problem for most players. We're sitting on like 50,000 plus on most of our characters, I think. And you put in the Iridium, it shoots out your gun with the fixed anointment, and maybe even have an option to change elements and stuff at some point too. I mean, that might be a little bit much, but I think it could be interesting.
Giving so many options to change almost everything in your gun wouldn't be like too much? Too much options?
So
considering how many things we have
2,
already.
Yeah. In Borderlands 2, it would have been too much, but in this game, since there's so many anointments and there's so many bad anointments that people absolutely hate, whether it's justified or not, I think it would be good to give us a less super RNG way to get the thing that we want. Because like if you've already farmed for the Monarch and you've already got a good Monarch and just the anointment sucks and you keep getting bad anointments over and over, and I've been there, I've had that happen to me too, then at some point most players are going to be like, screw this game, and I just quit, So to have some sort of option, and we're sitting on all this Iridium that we have no use for, so might as well give us something to use it on.
Okay, now I have a question for Quag, more like very specific about Flak. And I would appreciate if you could like explain it a little bit to the players who are here with us and are not familiar with the terms I'm gonna use here. So, do you think the other Vault Hunters should have more access to V1 and V2 in their skill trees? Or do you think it's what makes Flak special and it should be just for him?
Okay, so quick crash course in damage formulas in this game. V1 and V2 are community names for damage boost types in the damage formula. So an example of a V1 skill would be Flak's Pack Tactics, Flak's the Power Inside, Flak's Interplanetary Stalker. Noticing a trend, it's Flak, Flak, Flak. Flak is the only character with V1 boosts in skill tree. Now, other characters can get it from Guardian rank perk combo. They can get it from Victory Rush artifact. They can get it from the Terror Damage and Fire Rate anoint. V2 would be something like Amara's Personal Space, Zane's Old Man Flint, Flak's Hidden Machine. Every character has access to V1 and V2 in some way based on gear, skill tree, guardian rank, a combination of those things. But what makes Flak special, beyond just having a good distribution of damage boost among all of the trees except for purple, um, is that Flak is the only one with access to that modifier, and Flak gets a lot of it. A very significant chunk. Zane gets gun damage, Flak gets V1, Mose gets big elements, Amara is sad. But I think that to address the potential pitfalls of damage formulas and certain skill trees for other characters, I do think every character should have access to each damage boost type somewhere in their skill trees. Like Zane should get at least one V1 skill somewhere that forces you to think and not be like, okay, violent momentum commitment, build done. Amara should get some V1 somewhere in her green tree, perhaps, because green tree is such a specialized thing. We have purple doing most of those same things. It's a bit redundant, and in terms of damage formula boosts, if you look at all of Amara's boosts, she has less damage boost in her entire tree than each of the three other characters can get in one skill each. Amara's damage is in mayhem scaling, and this whole Flak V1 thing is closely intertwined with the fact that mayhem scaling is where a lot of the damage for the characters in the game is. Flak doesn't have that. Flak has the V1 instead. And this makes for a much better gameplay experience in terms of things you can do with builds. If we look at the builds documents we have in this Discord server, the Flak one has all these crazy different things. The Zane one is you shoot things or you use your digiclone. Amara one is ties the bind, I guess. Mo's one is splash skills. So I think giving everyone a V1 damage option in their trees somewhere is going to require a lot of balancing for it to be fair and not lead to ridiculousness. I think that would be big for build diversity for all characters as a whole.
Now, so we touched a little bit on scaling and balancing right here with Quag. So this is a question to both of you. Across the games that we had, even including Tales, which of the games do you guys think had the best scaling and balancing? And maybe explain why.
Okay, I'll go first. I honestly, without a doubt, think that Borderlands 3 is the best scaling and balancing. Even with its flaws currently, it's far better balanced than endgame of Borderlands 2. It's not even close. Borderlands 2 is the damage numbers are so astronomical, and the enemy damage resistance, and you have to use, well, you don't have to, but you almost have to use slag to do damage with your guns. And it feels like at end game on Borderlands 2, you're locked into like 5 or 6 different weapons, and period, the end. That's about all you can use. On this game right now, you can almost use about any legendary in the game and feel pretty decent. Granted, there's still some stinkers, but you're going to get that with every game. The pre-sequel was close. Pre-sequel was close to being pretty well balanced. And some of the Vault Hunters, like we talked about earlier with Timothy, he felt great. Athena felt great. But then you played Wilhelm and you're like, oh, everything's so clunky. I don't know, man. Things didn't feel good with Wilhelm. Claptrap felt good. But on that game, it felt like the difference between being like 1 or 2 levels under leveled and being on leveled was extreme. And then Borderlands 1 was fairly well balanced too, but I don't know. I guess Borderlands 3 and Borderlands 1 are the 2 best balanced in my opinion. Quag will know better.
Oh, my opinion is pretty much exactly the same. Borderlands 1 is so well balanced because it is just a simpler game. There's less going on. There's less moving parts. Borderlands 1 at its core is, hey, there's a cool number of guns. We're trying this new thing. You can shoot stuff with guns, and each character has a mildly special thing they can do once in a while. That's it. Borderlands 2, like K6 said, is slag was a real problem. Just a bad decision. And the damage numbers got to the point of utter absurdity. Stat squishes are a thing that other games have done when they get to that point, and that is something that Borderlands 2 probably should have looked at. And the pre-sequel, it feels either great or terrible. there's no in between with the prequel. There's things that are absolutely amazing, like Timothy feels great to play, Athena feels great to play. There are people who like Wilhelm out there. I'm personally not much of a fan either. I didn't care for Frag Trap much, but I didn't put much playtime there. But pre-sequel, perhaps some of the balance awkwardness is that it just didn't get as much time as the other games. Borderlands 1 has the excuse of being early. Borderlands 2 had a long time and just liked where it was going. It just doubled down. But Borderlands 3, like K6 said, despite all its flaws, despite a lot of changes over a relatively short period of time, is easily the best balanced game in the franchise. There are so many options in terms of things you can do. If you want to make one particular thing work, chances are there's a way to make it work. Whether that's a specific weapon, a specific action skill, a specific anointment, there's going to be a character or a class mod or an item that can help you make that thing shine. And Borderlands 3 is just a builder's dream. There's so many different things you can do. It has so much potential, even beyond what it is right now. So I definitely agree with K6 on BL3 is the best balanced.
Great answers all around, really. And now, if we were to throw balance out of the way right now, gone with it. What is your guys' favorite bad gear, like quote unquote bad gear? Like last episode, we had the gunner rank, for example, being name dropped. Like gear that just maybe it can work in a build, or it's just very niche, but you personally just like it. Do you guys have any?
All right.
Well,
I'll take the bullet for this one. You know what? I like the Infinity Pistol. I like it. Now that it's been buffed, I like the Infinity Pistol. It's not the light show. It's not any of those guns at all. And you're gonna be disappointed if you try and like take it and like go do some serious stuff with it. But it's just fun, man. I don't know. It reminds me of Borderlands 2 and just running and gunning with Zero and having that pistol heavy build where you just rocking the Infinity and you just don't have to worry about ammo. I don't know. I just enjoy it.
For me, it'd be the Butcher. I just really like the Butcher. I grew up with Diablo, so I love the reference. Borderlands 2, one of my first playthroughs, the very first Pearl I ever got was a Butcher. And I had so much fun using that gun. I knew it wasn't particularly, top tier. It was one of those good but not great things. It just feels so good to use. And getting it in Borderlands 3, knowing it was in Borderlands 3, I just had this massive grin. And as soon as I got it, and it's one of those you can get it relatively early game, it's just so satisfying to use. The sound design, again, the flavor to it, and it's a fun weapon. It's only ever really been gotten weaker over time in this game. Couple points where, like when they did that general Hyperion shotgun buff, I was so excited. The first thing I did on that hotfix day was rush to see if the Butcher was usable, and I was immediately disappointed. But the gun is still fun. I just love it.
Okay, well, like one question before, Killer, you said that lore is not that important to you. I mean, I would disagree with you because I played Borderlands 1, like since Borderlands 1, since it was released, all of the games forced lore only, and that was my main focus with Borderlands. So there is a lot of story in the game, but the thing is, the story you only discover if you really look around, because there's so many hints around hidden in the game that really expand the story. But I have a question for you guys that's more story related or lore. So which, apart from Handsome Jack, because Handsome Jack is like a very long and broad subject, apart from Handsome Jack, which is your favorite villain in any DLC or main villain in any game? Which one, apart from Jack, is your favorite and why?
This is an easy one for me.
Okay.
Private frickin' Bean. And I know,
Beans.
I know he's just this little dude, but man, he is a savage little bastard, man. He's like the closest we've come to a character in attitude who almost feels Handsome Jackish, where, he's an asshole, but you're like sitting there going, "Holy crap, this dude's funny as hell." I wish we had more private beans, and of course Try, but I might have stole somebody's answer.
No, my favorite one would be Private Bean is a really good choice. I didn't even think of that, and I'm like, now, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Mine is Pretty Boy from DLC One, because you can look at Pretty Boy's motivations and be like, oh, it totally makes sense why this guy's just a dick. He has a very legitimate bone to pick with Jack, and even if he doesn't say it, I'm sure part of his reason for wanting to take over everything Jack had was like, I want to take from this guy that beat me down and made me feel like I was nothing, and I want to use it all to build myself up into something so that no one can do that to me again. Like, I get it. He's not sympathetic by any means, but Pretty Boy's reasons to be villainous make sense. You're like, oh, okay, this tracks, and you can go about your business. And it presented enough of an engaging storyline for what is ultimately a relatively short period of content because it's a DLC. Those characters never stick around for long, but it still left enough of an impact on me that I think Pretty Boy is one of the better villains in the franchise.
Okay, well, Quack, I have a question for you. So,
Oh.
from the Borderlands lore to more of like streaming lore, maybe. So, one of the features during your streams for point redeeming is reading Borderlands themed copypastas, and they're absolutely amazing, each and every one of them. And no, I'm not asking you right now to read any copypastas because we could sit here for 4 hours, but because like all of them are themed about Borderlands streamers, the community, the builds, everything. Where do you get them from? Tell us your secret.
Where's the stash?
Give the stash.
So some of them are just funny things I find in my travels, whether it's scrolling, Twitter, Reddit, and whatever. Just some funny things people have said. But I do also have another channel point thing where people can submit ones for me to read, and assuming they're not too spicy to read on Twitch or anything, then I keep them all in a text document I have up on my left monitor while I play. And yeah, a lot of them are community submitted, so I don't even know where some of them came from, but a lot of them are just random funny things that I found, or copy pastas from other fandoms that you can change out words and make it Borderlandsy. One of them is like the Pokemon theme song, except you change a lot of the things to be relevant to Flack, because Flack guy and Purple Tree Bat.
Amazing. So, since we're on the topic of like streaming things and lore, this is one addressed to Ki11er6. I always wonder like, where do you have your name from? Like, what happened to Killer125?
All right, well, this is one of the like most boring answers you'll ever get, but there's a song called "The Ki11er6" by a band called Uva Leuven. It's like this. I don't even know how to describe the music. It's like electro or something. And it was one of those. It was one of those things where like I was back on Xbox 360 and I was like trying to think of like a good username, and I was listening to music, and that song came on, and I was like, that's a cool name. So I was like, all right, I'll just be the Ki11er6, I guess. And then people started calling me K6, and I was like, oh, that actually worked out really well. So it was just really simple. I just looked through my music library, found a song that had a cool name. Boom, name done.
Do you sometimes regret that you didn't pick Killer9 to be K9?
The only thing that I regret is using ones instead of L. Because in terms of like search engine optimization, people don't tend to type Ki11er6. I've seen people type my name as K1LL. I've seen like all the variations ever, and very rarely do I see people actually type the 1 for the L's instead. So I get kind of bonked by the search engine optimization for that.
Yeah, I also found it out firsthand today when we were going to give you like the role for you to talk here. And I was like, yeah, there are a lot of killers and Ki11er6 on the server, but not the Ki11er6. And then Furically leaned over to me like, yeah, you have to use the ones, And I remembered. Okay, so like one more question, and I'd like to go. It's for both of you, but I'd like to go Ki11er6 to go first, which is, do you guys think that the Borderlands or the Borderlands 3 community, for that matter, is supportive enough towards smaller content creators?
I think so. At time, but it's kind of like so in the streaming world, it's like this vast ocean of fish, and some fish are a little bit bigger than the others, and sometimes those bigger fish need to lead a pack of fish over to some food. And for me, if guys like Jolts Dude, Damn It to Hell, and Lazy and Quag aren't rating somebody at the end of their stream, then the odds of our communities finding those people are a little tougher. Because like at any given time, you can go into the Borderlands directory on Twitch or YouTube or Facebook Gaming, whatever you use, and there's going to be 50 people with one viewer, and that's why it's really important, and that's why it's been like a thing in the Borderlands community for as long as I remember, that we always raid at the end of our streams, and we always share our community around to other streamers, and not just our friends. We try to find smaller streamers. So I don't know. That's my take. I think the community is supportive of them, but sometimes you have to lead the community there. Long story short.
Yeah, I think that the thing that makes the Borderlands community a much warmer place than any other online gaming community I've been a part of, and I used to be a big MMO player, so I've seen some toxic community behavior. Is that people try to take care of each other here, whether it's larger streamers, medium-sized streamers, or smaller ones. Everyone usually tries to make sure that, hey, this person does something cool. You should go over there, check them out, see what they're doing. Hey, I'm doing this cool thing, but I heard it from this person. Go check them out. So I think shout-outs and properly crediting people for work they've done in the community is one of the things that the Borderlands community does very, very well. Now, it's not like anything else. It's not absolute. There are always hiccups with things like this. But I think that focusing on lifting each other up is something that makes us better as a community, because success isn't a limited thing. One person succeeding doesn't necessarily mean that someone else isn't, but we still can't be. It's easy to slip into the mindset of, oh well, this person feels downtrodden, but look, there's all these people doing well. There's these people doing this thing. This person doing this thing, or I personally am doing well. So what are they talking about? We need to remember that success for someone else is also success for you, if you support each other. It has to be a two-way street. So basically, my long-winded thing that I'm getting at is community is the best thing that you could do here, and I think that not forgetting each other, and that people have valid concerns and different things they're trying to do, just like mutual respect is a big thing that the Borderlands community does well, but needs to still keep an eye on.
Yeah.
Shut
I
up,
can
you're
agree
wrong.
with-
Sorry.
Okay, so while we are like still on the subject of streaming, I would like to ask you if you can like bring up a one highlight of your streaming or like YouTube videos, like one thing you remembered, like really impressed you or like stayed in your mind forever that happened during your streams. To both
Have you
questions.
guys ever farmed the 94 sham? Have you
That
have
was
you guys
my
ever
next
cried?
question to you, but yeah, continue.
Have
I
you
actually
ever
got a gold
cried
drop.
over a video game item before? I have.
Tell us
Getting
more.
the 94 sham live on stream and bawling my eyes out, freaking out. That was a pretty awesome moment for me.
What about you, Quag?
For me, it'd be the time. So, channel points on Twitch. I do a lot of stuff with that. I had a challenge where if my community raised 1,000,000 channel points in 30 days, I would read the entire B movie script on my stream. And I didn't think it would happen. I didn't think people would do it, but it happened. So this ended up being 3 hours of me sitting there, just reading a script, talking to chat on the side too. But I had a virtual whiteboard up as the background for my stream, and I had a few trusted people who were doodling and drawing out things that I was saying and putting funny memes up on the screen. And it was a great community activity. Unfortunately, I had to read things in some very cursed tones of voice, uwu speak, and things like that because donation incentives and whatnot. But it was a lot of fun. It's 3 hours of my life that anyone outside of internet communities like this would really look at me sideways for. But it's definitely the most memorable thing that I've done as a creator.
Okay, so one more question here. If there was a fight between Marcus and Claptrap, who would win?
Me,
Ooh.
me, Marcus.
Oh, okay, yeah. Thank you for the answer. Quack?
Marcus has all the guns.
All
Marcus
Marcus
has all
has
the
to do is
guns,
walk
dude.
up the stairs and he wins. Like he doesn't
Yeah.
even need to use his guns.
But see, unlike Marcus, if I get anywhere near stairs, it's pretty dangerous.
Yeah, well, kind of tracking back here on your worst, well, or like your most memorable moment. Here's 6. As someone myself who got like 94 champ just like this, just like by playing from as a wall drop, no big deal. When people get a 94 champ, should they throw it off the map? An answer,
You should
honestly.
throw it. You should throw it in the grinder, and then throw all the rest of your loot off the map, and then delete your character. That's what I do, and that's the
It's the
only
only way to get
reasonable
clean.
solution. Yeah,
Okay.
it's like a cleansing. It's like when people climb Mount Everest and then they die. That's kind of what I did.
Do you mean the people that climb Mount Everest and die on the mountain, or once
Yes.
they've gone
No,
down?
no, you have to die on the mountain. It's
Okay.
tradition.
Become part
Tradition
of it, I see.
for rich white people to do that.
Man, to be rich and white.
Sorry, I could.
That's totally fine.
Anyhow, moving on.
Anyway.
Next question.
Moving on. So, Quag, I have a question from some very high-profile streamer here in the community. And he asks, what streamer do you want to call it most with? And actually, why is it Newtmad? And this question is from Newtmad.
Well, you see, I would have to lead you guys on a breakdown of just my whirlwind romance with the absolute powerhouse that is Newtmad. And honestly, like his intelligence is only matched by his beauty and his passion, and just really, I'm gonna spend like the rest of my life with Newtmad, of course, because he's just I refer to him as cute Mad.
It's copy pasta time about not much, you know?
I do have one of those.
Okay.
But in seriousness, Newt's just a meme lord, but he's also a great guy and a great friend and a great content creator, very knowledgeable. And we like to joke around like that stuff before we go to bed in our shared bed in our family home.
Oh, that's wholesome.
Yeah, because we're Quamily, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll ask one more question, which is addressed to both of you, since you're both like very big streamers, like known by everyone. I was wondering if the fame that comes with being like a popular streamer, or at least a streamer, does it ever got to you in some way, or does it get to you at times nowadays?
I miss being able to, but I miss being able to lurk in Twitch chats. Like in a Borderlands chat, I can't go in and say like stupid things anymore. I can't go in and put a copy paste and be like, "Ha, I'm funny guy," because immediately it's like, "Hey, it's that guy." And I'm like, "Oh no."
I'll say the closest that I've ever got to like a high on fame is when we were at the gameplay reveal event, and somebody was like, "Ki11er6, I love your videos," and I was like, "People recognize me?" And then there was this other time I was at a local mall here in West Virginia, and some guy goes, "Dude, I love your videos," and I was like, I wasn't wearing any K6 merch or anything like that, you know. He just like recognized my chubby stupid face, so it was pretty cool. And when those things happen, you're like, this is awesome. I don't know. As close as I got.
Okay.
Yeah, the Ender Fiend just rushing through.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, maybe a question more a bit about balance in Borderlands 3, because we've always have a lot of those for you from users. Now, what is your opinion about locking certain gear behind mayhem levels? Is it like good for a game, bad for game? Good intensive or bad for playing on higher mayhems? To both.
You first,
Um,
Quag.
okay. I think it's both good and bad. It's good in the way that some weapons have a purpose because they are available earlier than their more powerful equivalents. Like you can view it as a positive like that. Like things like the Mongol is a great early game rocket launcher up through the lower mayhems. But as soon as you get to mayhem 6, and this is where the negative of it comes in, the Plague Bearer is available and it's just better than most of the equivalent launchers. Plague Bearer, Backburner cover pretty much all of your launcher needs in this game, and they're both Mayhem exclusives. So I think that it's a bad thing that something that functionally fulfills the same role but is just better exists. But I think that the idea of having different weapons available at different levels of power within the Mayhem system, if we have to have this Mayhem system, uh, is smart. Like the Mayhem 4 items, there's really no problematic things in there. And for at least a time, the level of power of them compared to the things below made sense. They weren't these end all be all ridiculous destroyer of worlds options, but they gave you an increase in power as a reward for you playing harder content.
Yeah, I mean, he nailed it. Like, the thing that I will say is, if you are going to have things that are locked behind specific mayhem levels, like the DNA, make them good.
Please.
don't lock something behind mayhem levels and have it be one of the worst weapons in the game. But yeah, I'm fine with things being locked behind mayhem levels. I think most players do tend to want to do the mayhem levels, even if they only go to mayhem 4 or mayhem 6. I don't really see too many people complaining about that.
Okay, we talked a bit about anointments and how people don't really like them, especially now when we have like such a bad anointments for flak and 7 anointments for most, which could be turned into one. But like in Borderlands 2, there was more emphasis on parts of the gun. Meanwhile, in Borderlands 3 right now, while the parts of the gun kind of matter still, of course, they don't have as much impact as anointments right now. And like people more focus on anointments. Do you think it would be better for the game, like for balance and everything, if we get, for example, rid of anointments and instead we would just focus on parts of the guns?
I'm gonna go ahead and take that a different way. I'm gonna say, I would like to have the option to go either or. And this is something that I kind of posed on Twitter the other day. Is what if they made normal mode be like your classic traditional Borderlands 1, Borderlands 2 kind of thing, where it's just normal mode. But the reason why it's not that way right now is because you can hit like level 35 or so, and then your XP is just going to peter out. You're not going to be able to do much with it unless you turn on mayhem modes. You would need to be able to play all the way from 1 to 65 on normal mode if you wanted to, but they would have to make it so that the enemies scale with you as you go, and then have the option to go into True Vaulter mode. But since you've already done the story, I think they should give you the option to say, I don't want to do the story again. I want all the things that I had unlocked on normal mode unlocked now, and I want anointments and mayhem mode available. And then you have to like get your mayhem level gear. I mean, you can kind of sort of do that now, but again, I don't know, man. I don't think that either of those is the answer. I don't think anointments is the answer, and I don't think having to look for parts is necessarily the answer. And I do feel like you can play Borderlands 3 without even worrying about anointments, really. I mean, you can do the entire game and not like I used a gunnerang with, I don't even know what the anointment was on it. I used a gunnerang and killed Wotan. It's like you don't have to have good anointments on your gear in order to play Borderlands 3 because the balancing is so much better than it was on Borderlands 2. On Borderlands 2, you did need to worry about parts because if you had a unkempt herald that's going to take too long or doesn't shoot fast enough, you're going to have a problem.
Yeah, I'd agree with a lot of that.
Quit agreeing with me, Quag. We're supposed to argue about stuff.
There is a point of disagreement here.
Okay,
I'll get
good.
to that. So the part where I'm agreeing is that balance is absolutely good enough that you don't need to worry about annoyance as long as the rest of your build is where it needs to be. If you're tackling any kind of difficult content. But I think that instead of restructuring the base game to kind of simultaneously have the annoyance and no annoyance thing, I think it should just be a clean cut. Get rid of the annoyance system entirely. Get rid of it. You would have to make the game, able to function well without having droves of people complain that suddenly they do no damage. You would have to do a health rescale, which this is kind of a thing that snowballs down. If you say get rid of annoyance, then it's like, okay, well, what about health values? Okay, we tone down health values, but then you're like, wait, we still have all this mayhem scaling with these lower health values. You have to tone down the mayhem scaling on skills and stuff. So it's a domino thing that affects a lot of areas of the game. That's part of the problem of the annoyance system. It is so problematic, but it is so rooted in the end game. It just needs to be. If I had my way, Endgame would look very different. It would be a lot closer to previous games in terms of bells and whistles. The core of Borderlands 3 is great. The gameplay, the balancing, the character design, the diversity, that all is great. But annoyance represent the worst of Borderlands 3 Endgame, and I just get rid of them. Get rid of them.
See, we still agree.
Kind of a random question, but it just popped into my mind, so I'm gonna ask it. Like, you guys have got both of you guys played Hades? I guess so, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
300 hours.
There's like this pact of punishment. Do you guys think something like this could work in Borderlands 3? Like, choosing your difficulty?
I think they kind of attempted that with Mayhem. So the Mayhem 2.0 system seems like sort of halfway in between Hades' Pact of Punishment and like if anyone here played Diablo series, the elite affixes in Diablo, like Fire Enchanted or Fire Chains, or Avenger, like one gets really big as you kill the other ones in the pack. Some of these are directly lifted from Diablo and put into Borderlands 3 as Mayhem modifiers, but a lot of the Mayhem modifiers are also reminiscent of things you find in Hades. There's similarities there, but the core difference is the thing that would make a full conversion of that kind of system better is in Hades you can choose. In Borderlands 3, you were still on the random modifiers, which aren't even actually random. It's a set seed. You can test this by going to your game right now, roll your modifiers 5 times, record what those extra rolls would be, and then exit out without applying those, and you go in again, you will get those same 5. So there is no reason why we can't just select, because someone could make a spreadsheet of the exact number of times you would need to hit your reroll button to get to the modifier you want. What's the point of making people do that when you could just save everyone some time and be like, hey, pick the ones you want, and maybe we'll reward you appropriately in terms of bonus loot or bonus experience or something. I don't know, but Hades' Pact of Punishment is selectable and Borderlands Mayhem is not. So that would be an immediate upgrade.
Okay.
Agreed.
Slowly wrapping up, because we're running out of questions here from the community. I want guys to thank you very much on behalf of all the moderation team, all the server, all the users here, all the participants. I want to ask before we finish if you want to add something, do a shout out to someone, add anything from myself, Killer.
I want to shout out to all these people that are here hanging out with us today, man. You guys are awesome. See some familiar faces. Less Handsome Jack Birdman, Haters. No, Moxie was here earlier. Mr. Rabbit GB. There's a lot of cool people in here, and thank you guys for having us. Appreciate it.
Quag?
Yeah, I'd pretty much say the same. Thank you to everyone who came out and supported us. Borderlands community is one of those things where everyone kind of knows each other, so there's not enough hours in the day for me to shout out everyone I would want to. But as blanket things, I want to shout out my moderators for the ridiculously good work they've been doing, and I want to shout out Ki11er6 for being one of the pillars of the community in terms of leading from the top down, making sure everyone goes and finds other creators and spreads the love out. And we're promoting sense of community in general, because that's like I keep touching on in here, and I'm gonna be a broken record about it. The best thing we have as the Borderlands community is that we are more a community than other online gaming communities, and I think that's great. So shout out to everyone who tries to approach things in the spirit of that.
Okay, thank you guys very much. It was a pleasure having you here today. For those who missed the whole of the interview, we'll upload it shortly on our YouTube. There will be information on our Twitter and server news where to find this video. And in 2 weeks, we're going to have another episode with surprise guests. We will announce them next week on the weekend. So have a good day, have a great weekend, and thank you guys for joining us here today.